The Korean War has been referred to as the Forgotten War, being after World War II and just before the Vietnam War. It began on June 25, 1950, and ended with the signing of the Korean Armistice Agreement on July 27, 1953. During the 3 years of the war, approximately 3 million people died during the conflict. Initially, because the United States military had pulled back on spending and training after the end of World War II, there were lots of setbacks and defeats during the initial days. Additionally, many World War II veterans were war-weary and didn't want to be sent into a new conflict so soon. But it is impossible to discuss the Korean War and not mention the impact that it has had on shaping the world then and even today. Having just ended World War II, the United States looked to pull back the immense spending and military budgets of the war. Demobilization of U.S. forces started after the end of World War II, and by 1947, the number of soldiers had dropped from approximately 12 million in 1945 to 1.5 million, and discretionary spending on military budgets had dropped by almost 80%. American soldiers were tired and wished to return home after the years of the war. As referenced in the book From the Yudsin to the Yalu, graduates from West Point Academy in 1949 did not see a conflict occurring so soon after the end of World War II, and many were apprehensive about the conflict in general. Many people today probably know the Korean War through a different lens, and that is through the TV show MASH. It was a comedy drama set during the Korean War and based on a mobile Army surgical hospital on the war front. While this TV show was created well after the end of the Korean War, it was one of the first pieces of media that started to expose the general public to the Korean War, even in a comedic setting. 3 years later, after the end of the show, the design of the first Korean War memorial was started. Beyond media, it wasn't until July 27, 1995, that the first Korean War memorial was opened, having been started as a design process in 1986. For a war that had claimed so many 40 years prior, it is very interesting that such a conflict would not have been memorialized sooner. In Sui Cho's book, Embattled Memories, Contested Memories in Korean War Memorials, she says that the current changes in attitudes by the media have allowed the current reconstruction of the Korean War to happen and to be researched more fully. Additionally, since there are still survivors of the war, this allows for more interviews to occur to gain additional insight into what occurred. There are still many impacts from the Korean War that are seen today. North and South Korea are still a divided country, but stand in stark contrast to one another. South Korea has created what was called an economic miracle, according to Donald Goldstein and Harry Mayheffer in their book The Korean War, Story and Photographs. Meanwhile, North Korea is still a dictatorship that continues to influence world leaders from threat of military and nuclear aggression. To this day, countries worldwide still have to deal with tensions from these two nations. My discussion question posed to the class is, so why has the Korean War been less studied and overshadowed throughout the years compared to the wars before and after it? What other insights can be learned from the conflict that can be used today? Thank you very much.